This is a Fox News alert. News from the President of the United States that there has been an attack inside Iran. Just moments ago, President Donald Trump putting out on Truth Social, we have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. Again, this from President Donald Trump. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, that's just seconds ago from President Donald Trump on Truth Social, suggesting that those B-2 bombers that perhaps were on the way may have been behind this. We'll get more details on these 3 sites that the president said has been attacked inside Iran. This comes after days of negotiations to try to get Iran to the negotiating table. The President of the United States saying it would have to be unconditional surrender, saying enrichment would have to stop. We heard from negotiations in Europe that that was not being accepted by the Iranians, that they would not stop enriching uranium. There was a thought that this could go as long as 2 weeks, as the president said he would decide within 2 weeks. However, 2 days is within 2 weeks. And now word from President Donald Trump that these attacks have happened. Again, interesting that 3 sites have been struck by U.S. bombers. And this, again, we'll get more information about the exact targets and what bombs were used. We expect that the GBU-57, the bunker buster, the massive penetrator bomb, may have been one of those used. Fordo is a nuclear facility inside Iran that is roughly a half-mile deep underneath a rock mountain-like facility that has been said to be the site of a lot of the enrichment capability. Esfahan, believed to be a storage facility for enriched uranium, and Natanz, another part of the nuclear facilities. They have several throughout Iran. It has been long described as a very difficult and tedious effort to go after these nuclear sites, but the U.S., for the first time, launching an attack inside Iran. Again, the President of the United States saying all of the planes are out of Iranian airspace. The bombings do continue by the Israelis inside Iran as this back-and-forth volley between Israel and Iran has continued for some 2 weeks. We expect to hear more about this operation, not only from the Pentagon, but perhaps from the White House, although the White House this evening, has called a lid, as far as meaning no one will talk after that. That may be changing now. Obviously, we have this Truth Social post from President Donald Trump. Just in from the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune. The regime in Iran, which has committed itself to bringing death to America and wiping Israel off the face of the map, has rejected all diplomatic pathways to peace. The mullah's misguided pursuit of nuclear weapons must be stopped. Senate Majority Leader Thune continues, as we take action tonight to ensure a nuclear weapon remains out of reach for Iran, I stand with President Trump and pray for the American troops and personnel in harm's way. Just moments ago, the president shared or reposted on his Truth Social a sentence from an open source that said Fordo is gone. We'll go back to Jen Griffin at the Pentagon. What else are you working, Jen?
Well, Brett, I think we have to look back at the news that broke earlier today, those 6 B-2 bombers that were heading west towards Guam. They would not have made it to Iran in time to take part in this strike. So that suggests to me that there was an additional B-2 package that perhaps flew eastward from Whiteman Air Force Base. Again, this was all part of the deception. There was a great deal of sort of misleading tidbits put out there to suggest that maybe President Trump had put off the decision and that this would happen 2 weeks from now. But as we knew, there were other indications, and we did not report earlier this week, even though we knew that Whiteman Air Force Base had put out a notice suggesting that the base was closed for so-called repairs until Monday, June 23rd. Now, if you look at the time frame of where we are right now, those B-2s would be home at Whiteman by the time that notice and that would be lifted on Monday, June 23rd. So that was put out a week ago, and so we should have had some clue that this might have been some indication of the time frame. That being said, there were a lot of people. Everyone was looking west, and it is possible that these B-2s actually flew east, and they used those refuelers that we've talked about. Now, if we also look at the number of sites, there were 3 sites. We know that B-2s at least would fly most likely in pairs, and so you would have had at least 4 massive ordnance penetrators, those 30,000-pound bombs dropped on the Fordo site. You could have had other B-2s engaged in Natanz as well as Isfahan, but you also could have had other fighter bombers. The U.S. Air Force has many bombers at its, and they have smaller bunker buster bombs that are smaller than the MOP, the 30,000-pound bombs. So we'll have to wait and see when the Pentagon or the president decides to share exactly how many planes were involved and what configuration took out these 3 sites. But this, what I would like to say, and from talking to many former commanders who were responsible for this kind of mission and this mission in particular, I can tell you that their fear is what comes next. And always, as part of this planning for the last 20 years, and there have been war plans here at the Pentagon for years, and in terms of how to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, and they've been honed over the years. But the concern has always been how to position U.S. forces for how Iran is going to react, because Iran still, as significant a blow as this is to its nuclear program, it still has quite a bit of capability at a lower end. They still have thousands of shorter and medium-range missiles that can, and other ballistic missiles that can reach U.S. bases in the region. That's why earlier in the week we reported that at Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar, that the U.S. had moved most of its aircraft away from that base, out of that base, to a safer place, because they know how vulnerable those bases are. I mean, the U.S. forces, there are 40,000 U.S. forces spread out across the Middle East at various bases tonight, in addition to the 2 aircraft carriers and the many naval vessels and destroyers that are in the ocean. Those are all targets. And we also had noted earlier in the week that at the 5th Fleet in Bahrain, that all of those Navy vessels that the U.S. usually has base stationed there had gone out to sea. So that's a form of force protection. But there is a degree of expectation that Iran's Navy, if you will, its forces could mine the Strait of Hormuz. There could be disruption to shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. That is the type of thing that the Pentagon has been planning for in terms of what comes next, because it's very easy for the U.S. military to carry out this kind of tactical strike, and they are very good at it. Nobody is better. But what happens in the coming days? What kind of terror cells do the Iranians try to ignite worldwide? They have terror cells, as we know, in Europe, in the United States, elsewhere. They have a limited ability now with their proxies, thanks to what the Israelis have done in the last year in terms of taking out Hezbollah, Hamas, even the Houthis. The 70 days that the U.S. military and the U.S. Air Force bombed the Houthis are a little reluctant to get involved, and you haven't seen much activity from Yemen in the recent 10 days or so, and I think that is notable. But the U.S. military very much on high alert tonight, expecting what could come next. You have American soldiers in Syria and Iraq at small outposts, and they are vulnerable tonight.